All right, guys, part 2. All right, I'm going to start where we left off yesterday. I'm going to do anything that's highlighted in green we'll do. It's kind of reminiscent of stuff that we've done in the past. This is to jog your memory. If you don't remember how to do this, you need to go back and look at some things, okay? I'm going to post all of the answers worked out, and I will post all of these videos on YouTube. So when you come in on on Monday, you should come in with questions that you have to prepare. I'm not going to give you a whole new set of problems, just kind of troubleshoot and answer some questions for you. So if you are to solve by factoring, right, that means you're going to find the answer. So what would I have to do here in 35? I'd have to distribute first. So I'd have 6x squared minus 6x equals 21 minus x. And remember, when we factor, we want everything on one side. So I'm going to move everything to the left. So 6x squared minus 6x plus x minus 21. Because when I move them to the opposite side, their signs change. So if you combine like terms here, you have 6x squared minus 5x, God bless you, minus 21 equals 0. So now we have to figure out what our factors would be here. So 6 times negative 21, that's going to give me negative 126. I'm trying to multiply to get negative 126, and I'm trying to add to get negative 5. So how you would do this, guys? It's 1 and 126. 2 and 63. 3 and 42. 4 doesn't. 5 doesn't. 6 does. How many times? 21. All right, we're trying to get 5 in the middle. 7 does. 18 times, and then 9 and 14. What could possibly give us a 5? The 9 and 14. So I'm going to have x and x in front here, and I have 9 and 14. I need a negative 5, so it's going to be minus 14 plus 9. But what do I have to do with the 6? I have to divide both of these by 6. So when I do that, 9 6 is not going to divide pretty, but it will simplify to x plus 3 over 2. And 14 over 6 will not be pretty, but it'll simplify to negative 7 over 3. And then we solve, right? Okay, so you guys know how to factor. What do you notice about 36? What can we take out? Take out that 3, then you have x squared plus 5x plus 6. Makes your problem a lot easier when you take out that GCF. What are the factors of 6 that multiply to give you 6 and add to give you 5? Plus 3 and plus 2. So your zeros are at x equals negative 3 and x equals negative 2. You want to set this 3 equals 0. That's fine, but that's never true, so you don't have to worry about it. But if it says solve by factoring, they're telling you exactly what to do. Now, down here with the domain questions, like I said, I'm going to post the answers all worked out. Ms. Glick has nice little notes written all over, which is great. But when they ask for the domain, there's 3 things that cannot happen. Can't have a variable in a denominator, a variable underneath a square root, or underneath a square root in a denominator. That's like a double whammy. If none of those rules are broken, what is your domain? All reals, negative infinity to positive infinity. In number 37, there's no rules being broken, so every number can be used. If there's a variable in a denominator, a variable underneath a square root, or if you have a variable underneath a square root that is in the denominator. So if you look at like 38 has a problem because there's a variable in a square root. That has to be greater than or equal to 0, because if it's not, then you would have imaginary numbers, and we want real numbers. You set just the expression that's underneath the square root greater than or equal to 0, not the whole equation or inequality. So if I square both sides, I'm going to have x squared minus 25 greater than or equal to 0. X squared greater than or equal to 25. Take the square root, so you get x is greater than or equal to 5. Now, you guys are sitting here thinking, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. X is greater than or equal to positive and negative 5. Well, remember, this is a quadratic that we've made an inequality. So that means all that is are just test points. So what kind of a dot are you going to have at negative 5 and positive 5, according to the inequality sign? Closed, good. Now think about this. When I read this, it says x is greater. What does or mean? Which way do we shade if it's or? Opposite, good. So what this is telling us is that anything on the outsides of those numbers will work, the inside won't. So check 0. If I plug in 0 right here, what is 0 squared? 0 minus 25. What's the square root of negative 25? Yeah, it's an imaginary, so we can't use it. So what is your domain here? How would you tell me I can use everything in the yellow? Negative infinity to what? Negative 5, good. Does it include negative 5? Yep. And then I pick up again at positive 5 to infinity. Good. The problem here in this one is that there's a variable where? In a denominator. So go ahead and factor that. This would be x plus 2 and x plus 5. Right? Factors of 10 that multiply to give you 10 but add to give you 7. So this is saying that x can be any number in the world except for negative 2 and except for negative 5. So how would you say that as far as interval notation of domain is concerned? I can use anything except for those two numbers. It would be negative infinity to what number? Negative 5. Can I use negative 5? No, because that'll make your denominator 0. So then I can use anything from negative 5 to negative 2 in that little area. And then I can also use anything from negative 2 to infinity. So you guys, those rules, again, I'm going to post the answers, and Miss Glick wrote them out nice and pretty for you, so that's nice. So they'll be there. But just make sure you guys know the rules for domain. What's up? No? Okay. Okay. All right. Page. We'll talk about transformations. We're going to do 41 and 42. Because if you know 41, 42, then you know 43, 44. No. All right, let's go through this quickly, guys. What is this negative out in front? Tell me. Reflect where? Reflect over x. What is the 3? A vertical what? Stretch, good. What is this plus 4 up back here? Up 4. What does this 2 inside mean? Goes which direction? Left 2, good. If I look over here, what does this 1/4 out in front mean? It's a vertical shrink or compression, good. This minus 6 back here moves my graph where? Down 6. Now the inside stuff is what can be a little tricky. What does the minus inside tell us? It's a reflection over what? Good, over y. What does this 3 in front tell us? It's a horizontal shrink or compression. You would think it's a stretch because it's a number bigger than 1, but it's the opposite of what we think. And then this minus 7 inside moves us where? Right 7. All right, so make sure you guys are on top of your stretches and shrinks and all of our transformations. Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Slope, all right, super basic. How do you find slope? Well, let's remind ourselves what the formula is. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if I were you, I would just label x and y so you don't get confused. I'm going to choose to say negative 2 minus 10. So if I use negative 2 minus 10, if I say negative 2 on top first, what goes on the bottom first? 5, yes. 5 minus negative 13. Whatever y value you use, you have to use the corresponding x value first. So 2 minus 10 is negative 12. 5 minus a negative 13 is going to be plus 13, which gives me 18. Can you simplify that? Yes, and that becomes what? Negative 2/3. So your slope is negative 2/3. Okay, come down here, guys, when they ask for finding the slope. Well, remember, when you're finding the slope, your equation needs to be in y equals mx plus b. If it's not already in that form, you need to get it there. So if we're going to get y by itself, we're going to subtract 8x, and we're going to add 3. So I have 9y equals negative 8x plus 3. I'm going to divide everything by 9. Now, the only thing that matters is that number that's right in front of x. So your slope here is negative 8/9. Yes, you can go ahead and simplify 3 over 9, but the only thing that matters is that your slope is negative 8/9. That x is not included with that. It's just that your slope is negative 8/9. All right, moving along, guys. Midpoint. Anybody remember the midpoint? Midpoint is add your x's, divide by 2, add your y's, divide by 2. So my two x values would be 4 plus 2, I'm going to divide that by 2, and then negative 6 plus 13 divided by 2. Hang on one sec, let me finish this one. 4 plus 2 is 6. 6 divided by 2 would be 3, right? And then negative 6 and 13 is 7 divided by 2. You can just leave it just as that point right there. No problem. If you're asked to find the distance, this is all stuff we went over at the very beginning of school. My internet's lagging, hang on. Okay, our distance formula is going to be your x's, subtract your x's, square them, subtract your y's and square them, and then add those things together. So if I look here to find the distance here, my x's are 1 and 7, so I'm going to say 1 minus 7. You can also say 7 minus 1, doesn't matter. The order doesn't matter because you're going to square it. So we have plus, we can say 3 minus 9 squared. So 1 minus 7 is going to give me negative 6 squared, plus 3 minus 9 is negative 6 squared. And I end up here with 36 plus 36, which gives me the square root of 72. Now we have to break down. If this is a free response question, you have to break it down. If it's a multiple choice, then you can probably troubleshoot and figure out which is which. But we can break 72 down into 36 times 2. The square root of 36 is 6, so your final answer here would be 6 root 2. All right. Again, for each little section, Miss Glick put nice little notes, so I will post this afternoon and make sure you guys have access to it so you can look at it. But how do you find x and y intercepts? You plug in what number? 0. So if I want to find the x-intercept, I plug in 0 for y. So if I'm finding the x-intercept, I'm going to plug in 0 for y. So when I do that, I get 4x equals 16. Divide by 4, and I get x equals 4. So that would be your intercept. If you were going to find the y-intercept, you plug in 0 for what? For x. So I'm going to plug in 0 right here for x. So when I plug in 0 for x, I have 5y equals 16. Divide both sides by 5, and y equals 16 over 5. That's a place on the graph. Not the prettiest place on the graph, but it's a place on the graph, no problem. So finding intercepts, guys, you just plug in zeros. All right, for 56, and then I think I did 57 or 58 on the next page. Guys, if you're writing an equation of a line that is parallel or perpendicular, it's really important that we remember what parallel is. Parallel lines have same slope. Good. You guys are given a point. You're also given a slope. You just have to find it. So you're going to put that information into point-slope form and then write your equation of the line. They might ask you for the equation of the line in y equals mx plus b. They might ask it for point-slope form, so make sure you know point-slope. But if I have this equation, I'm going to add 4x to both sides. So I have negative 8y equals 4x plus 16. Divide by negative 8, and I get y equals negative 1/2 x minus 2. What is the only thing that I need from this equation? The negative 1/2. I want a line that is parallel. That means I'm going to use the same slope. So I'm going to use the point that they gave me and the slope, and I'm going to put it into point-slope form. So y minus negative 6 equals my slope, negative 1/2, times x minus 1. So y plus 6 equals, when I distribute, I get negative 1/2 x plus 1/2. If I subtract 6 from both sides, guys, when I subtract 6, it's the same as subtracting 12 over 2. So I have y equals negative 1/2 x minus 11 over 2. That line is parallel to this one because they have the same slope. You have to, whatever they give you, you have to find the slope from whatever they give you, whether it's 2 points or another line or something like that. Parallel, they have the same slope. So if I look here at 58, they want perpendicular. That means opposite reciprocal. So I have this line here. Let's add 2x to both sides. I have 5y equals 2x plus 3. Divide by 5. and y equals 2 over 5x plus 3/5. What is the perpendicular slope to 2/5? It's negative 5 over 2. You have to flip it and change the sign. So now we can say y minus 9, that's your y value, your y value, and then negative 5/2, x minus 4. So you have y minus 9 equals negative 5 over 2x. When I distribute, when I say negative 5 over 2 times negative 4, that gives me positive 20 over 2, which is 10, so plus 10. And then I add 9 to both sides. So y equals negative 5 over 2x plus 19. That line is perpendicular to the one that they gave us. Parallel, same slope, perpendicular, opposite, reciprocal. All right, moving down here, guys. Go ahead and cross off 60 and 61. They don't work right. But let's look at 59. Finding all the zeros, guys. That means what are the answers? How many x's should I have for this question? 4. Highest exponent is 4. I cannot do anything other than what to find the answers? P over Q. So plus minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. As soon as something doesn't work, what do? As soon as you recognize, hey, 1 doesn't work, move on to something else. Don't waste your time. So I'm going to start with 1. Write out all your coefficients. 1, negative 2, negative 7, 8, and 12. So bring down your 1. 1 times 1 is 1. Negative 2 and 1 is negative 1. Negative 1 and 1 is negative 1. Negative 7, negative 1 is negative 8. Negative 8 and 1 is negative 8. So this gives me 0. Is this going to work? No. Go to negative 1. So 1, negative 2, negative 7, 8, and 12. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. Negative 2 and negative 1 is negative 3. Negative 3 and negative 1 is 3. Negative 7 and 3 is negative 4. Negative 4 and negative 1 is 4. 8 and 4 is 12. 12 times negative 1 is negative 12. I got a remainder of 0. So what did you just figure out? X equals negative 1. One of my answers is x equals negative 1. Good. Now with what's left over, I have x cubed minus 3x squared minus 4x plus 12 equals 0. You guys can go ahead and do P over Q again. But at this point, I would try and group it. If I take the first 2 and then the second 2, I can take out an x squared, and I'm left with x minus 3. In the second group, I can take out a negative 4, and I'm left with x minus 3. So this groups nicely. You have in common an x minus 3. We can take it out in front. And then the leftovers get their own parenthesis. And then I can factor that one a tad bit more. X plus 2, x minus 2. So I have zeros at x equals 3, x equals negative 2, and x equals positive 2 for a total of 4. You guys see that? Okay, let's move along. Long division. Now, if this is a free response question, it says you have to use long division, then you have to use long division. If it is a multiple choice and it says use long division, go ahead and use synthetic because I don't know what you're going to use. That's okay. But if we were going to use long division here, x plus 5 is on the outside. On the inside, we have x to the 4th. We have no x cubed, so I have to have a placeholder for it. Minus 8x squared plus 2x plus 7. And we say first term into first term. So x times what gives me x to the 4th? That would be x cubed. So I'm going to put it right here above x cubed. And I'm going to get my subtraction ready before I multiply. So x cubed times x is x to the 4th. X cubed times 5 is plus 5x cubed. Before we subtract, we have to distribute that negative sign. So I have actually negative 5x cubed, and I bring down my 8x squared. My x to the 4th cancel. So do it again. First term into first term. X times what gives me negative 5x cubed? That would be minus 5x squared. Get your subtraction ready before you multiply. Negative 5x squared and an x is negative 5x cubed. Negative 5x squared and 5 is minus 5x squared. 25x, I'm sorry. Now before we subtract, we distribute. So this leaves me with 17x squared. My x cubes cancel, and I bring down my plus 2x. First term into first term would be x times what gives me 17x? It squared would be 17x. So now we're going to multiply. 17x times x is 17x squared. 17x times 5 is 85x. Before you subtract, you have to distribute, or add, you have to distribute. So negative 83x, 17's cancel out, and I bring down my plus 7. So x into negative 83x is just negative 83. Number gets a little big here, that's okay. So we have negative 83x minus 415. Distribute that negative. My 83's cancel out, and I'm left with 422. 422 is my leftover. It's our remainder. It's positive, so I would say plus 422, and then we put it over what we divided by, x plus 5. And again, if this was a multiple choice question, you could have done that with synthetic division. Yeah?
What's that number? The one that you multiplied 5 by 8?
415. Yeah. All right, scoot down here. Synthetic division to divide. So look at 66. What am I putting up in the corner? How do I know what goes up in the corner? What number to use? You set the whatever you're dividing by equal to 0. So x minus 3 equals 0. So I'm going to use 3 to synthetically divide. So if you write out your coefficients, 2, negative 5, and 3. They're asking you to divide. They want the quotient. So when I bring down the 2 here, 2 times 3 is 6. Negative 5 and 6 is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. What you have left over here is your answer, right? We started off with x squared, so my answer will start 1 less. So this is 2x plus 1. And what is 6? 6 is your remainder. It's positive, so plus 6. And what did you divide by? X minus 3. You could have done the exact same thing with this problem up here on the multiple choice section. If it says you have to use long division and it's a free response, then yeah, you got to do that. But, you know, do what you can when you can. All right, 2 more, guys, and then I'll finish up tomorrow. All right, find the zeros and state the multiplicity. If you're going to find zeros, what does x equal? How many answers should you have here? 5. So the first thing I'm going to do is take out what they have in common. I'm going to take out the x squared. I'm left with x cubed plus x squared minus 8x minus 12. This all equals 0. All right. The beauty of this is that you already have 2 answers already, because if I say x squared equals 0, I take the square root, right? What do we put on our answer if we take the square root? Plus or minus. Is there such a thing as plus or minus 0? No, but it's good to put that plus or minus because you just found out that you have 0 how many times? 2 times. You'll have a question on your exam that says, find the zeros and state the multiplicity. So you have to say how many times you have that answer. Now, secondly, we're going to go through what you have left over here, the x cubed plus x squared minus 8x minus 12. It would be wonderful if it grouped, but it doesn't. So that means we have to use p over q. All right, so let's try all the factors of 12. Plus, minus 1, 2, 3, 4. What else? 6 and 12. All right, let's try 1. 1, 1, negative 8, negative 12. Bring down the 1. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 times 1 is 2. Negative 8 and 2 is negative 4. This is not going to work. So try negative 1. 1, 1, negative 8, negative 12. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. 0 times negative 1 is 0. This one's not going to work either. Okay. Let's try 2. 1, 1, negative 8, negative 12. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. Negative 8, negative, no, not going to work. All right, let's try negative 2. 1, negative 1, negative 8, negative 12. Oh, positive 1 here. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. 1 and negative 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 and negative 2 is 2. So negative 8 and 2 is negative 6. Negative 6 and negative 2 is 12. Okay, what did we just figure out? X equals negative 2. Okay, that's one of my answers is x equals negative 2. So with what I have left over, I have x squared minus x minus 6. Can I factor that? Finally, we can. What are the factors of negative 6 that multiply to give me negative 6 but add to give me 1? Negative 1? Minus 3 and plus 2. So x equals negative 3 and x equals negative 2. So if I found the zeros and I stated the multiplicity for 0, what other kind of multiplicity do you have here, guys? You have negative 2 how many times? 2 times. So you've got to be able to look at that. All right, one more question. And then I'll leave you guys alone for a minute. If I ask you for the remainder theorem, what is the only thing that I care about? The remainder. Very good. So, in a case like this, they're telling you to use negative 2. Okay, great. Now, when you write out your coefficients, guys, remember, every single exponent has to be accounted for. So I have 4. What's in front of your x to the 4th? 3. What's in front of x cubed? 0. What's in front of x squared? Negative 6. What's in front of x? 0. And then you have 4. If you don't have those placeholders, your problem is wrong. So if you bring down that 4, what's 4 times negative 2? Negative 8. 3 and negative 8 is negative 5. Negative 5 and negative 2 is 10. 10 and 0 is 10, right? 10 times negative 2 is negative 20. What's negative 20 and negative 6? Negative 26. Negative 26 and negative 2 is 52. 0 and 52 is 52. 52 and negative 2 is negative 104. And then 4 and negative 104 is negative 100. So what is my answer to this problem? Q of negative 2 equals what? Negative 100. If they ask for the remainder theorem, if they ask to use the remainder theorem, all they care about is the remainder. If you were dividing, it would be the whole thing. It would be 4x to the 4th minus 5x cubed plus 10x squared minus 26x plus 52 minus 100 over whatever. But since it said use the remainder theorem, all they care about is the remainder. Questions? Nope. If it's the remainder theorem, all they want is whatever you use to synthetically divide equal to whatever the remainder is. Okay.